Welcome everyone to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare, my partner in this thought leadership series and community of e-commerce professionals in B2B. Andy, welcome to another Friday 15.
Yeah, good to be here. Got back from Las Vegas last night. It was 93 in Las Vegas and it was 37 in Chicago.
Ah, nice. Well, I drove up to Utah and it was 80 here. I don't get it. I'm in the mountains. What the frick? I don't get it. But apparently, the whole West this year has been awful with snow, and it's been really warm. And that, unfortunately, the ski industry, they're shutting down all the ski resorts. It's not even the end of March. It is the end of March. It's crazy. That's over a month before they usually shut them down. So not great for our ski season. But of course, the East Coast got hammered with snow this year. So I don't know. All kinds of weird stuff's happening, Andy, with weather. So, well, we were in Las Vegas this week, and that's our topic today for our Friday 15. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the heck we were doing in Vegas land. But before we get to that, let's do some breaking news. Andy, did you see this? This is fascinating. OpenAI is shutting down Sora, its AI video generator. The app, which many called creepy for how like it felt, allowed conversations that mimicked real human interactions. While it was meant to explore AI companionship and mental wellness, users reported discomfort as the AI sometimes mirrored emotions or became unsettlingly persistent. And the shutdown comes less than a year after a year of operations, reflecting broader concerns around AI's role in intimate human interactions. Andy, they had a $1 billion deal with Disney to use Sora, yet they still shut it down. What's your take on this?
I think that says it all. I mean, let's face it, they're getting their ass kicked by Claude, and they need to focus on the core capabilities about computing. And there's so much opportunity on that side of the ledger that they've decided, and I think to their credit, to really focus on some stuff. They shut down some other businesses as well they had running.
That's true.
That said, this thing was pretty impressive technology, and $1 billion deal with Disney, and that was just a starting point.
Crazy.
If you told somebody 6 months ago when we all saw this, I think we all saw this. I showed this video at events where they had like almost Pixar-like capabilities that they built in like a couple of weeks that took years, and hundreds of millions of dollars for Pixar to do. If we'd said, "Oh, guess what? 6 months from now, they're going to throw the whole thing in the trash," we both would have laughed.
Yeah.
Yet they did.
Yeah, they did. Why not just sell it to Disney? I mean, they had $1 billion deal or something.
Probably, yeah, I know. Probably though, because the engineering team that built it, they've repurposed them within OpenAI to do computing stuff, and I think it was too integrally tied to the engineering team. Because we talked about this in the pre-call. Why not sell this to a venture capital firm or sell it to Disney or give it to somebody and let them go play with it? I mean, it wasn't producing a lot of revenue. I think I read it was only about $1.5 million in licensing revenue versus hundreds of millions of dollars in licensing revenue for ChatGPT. But still, the potential was there, and it's a business. I think somebody's going to call them and say, "Hey, can we buy this thing? Can we take it out of the dustbin and take it with us and do something perhaps?"
Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Well, it's interesting because, Andy, when we were at the conference this week, and we'll talk about that in a second, AI was all the buzz. And I think all this just speaks to the evolving nature of this, and how much change there is happening here, both with who the leaders are, what the technology, what channels exist for these. And, there's so much change, and we don't know who's going to win the race here. So it's going to be interesting to see. It makes me feel young. Well, hey, a quick public service announcement, Andy, before we jump into our topic. I want to remind folks that our forum is available to practitioners at no cost. This is a practitioner-only online community that has wonderful conversations happening every day. People are talking about solutions, approaches to building their business, jobs, people are looking to hire, people looking to get hired, all kinds of things, different solutions. It is free, again, for practitioners. You go to our website, masterb2b.com, look for the forum in the top of the navigation bar there, and sign up at no cost. We'll get you.
Yeah, and By the way, in the B2B space, there is literally nothing else there like it.
No,
We hear this over and over again. People are like, yeah, I posted this in the forum. I got a great answer.
right,
You said people are posting that they've got jobs available.
right.
No, it's a trusted network. It took many years to build. That's why it's
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah, it takes time, but we're getting good interactions there every day. So folks, encourage you to take a look. Now, our topic today, Andy, we were in Las Vegas, Nevada this week for Shoptalk Spring 2026. And for those of you who can see our screen, I'm going to share a few pictures here, but wanted to share our takeaways. But before we do that, what the heck were we doing at Shoptalk? So for those of you who don't know Shoptalk, it is a very large B2C e-commerce show. In fact, they get over 12,000 people at this thing. It's enormous. There's a huge show floor. We'll show you some pictures in a moment. And it is really a leading venue for B2C e-commerce. So think about, large retailers like your Macy's of the world and companies like that, and large consumer brands, and folks of that nature, and the folks that run their e-commerce business. That's primarily who was at this thing. And so we wanted to see, what are some of the similarities and differences from B2B, which is why we joined the event. But really what spurred our interest was some of the data, Andy, and some of the things that our community tells us. In fact, Deloitte Insights found that 78% of B2B leaders say customers expect more digitized consumer-like experiences. So you've got this cohort of buyers now, B2B buyers, that are looking are now acting like, in some ways, consumers on the B2B side. They expect from you, a B2B seller, experiences that are similar in some ways. And millennials are now the majority of B2B buyers, 75% of the global workforce. And those folks are increasingly moving into B2B procurement roles. Millennials make up 60% of their purchases online. That's up from 47% less than 10 years ago. 2/3 of millennials make half or more of their purchases from Amazon. 97% use Amazon for at least part of their shopping. I mean, so you've got these digitized, native buyers. So we wanted to go to the home of consumer e-commerce, home in
Well,
the sense of where most people get together, to find out more. Go ahead, Andy.
yeah, and the reality is, and I've said this for years, I think you have as well, is that every B2B buyer is also a B2C consumer.
Right.
And it's not like I used to use the analogy, it's not like you watch a movie in color and then go back to watching it in black and white and say, hey, this is great.
Right.
Once you've had the experience, once you've tasted a different kind of personalized, tailored, experience, and not all of it translates, let's be
Yep.
honest. But
Yep.
we've always known that sort of the more cutting edge on the customer engagement end of things takes place on the B2C side.
Yep.
The old joke about everything starts in porn and in gaming. It makes its way into B2C, and then
Right.
eventually, but I think the timelines are so much shorter now that we wanted to be there to see what's going on in B2C, because just like that Sora thing, 6
Yep.
months ago, people thought it was going to change the entertainment industry. Now it's in the toilet. They just threw it in the trash, right? So, these timelines are so short now that I
Yep.
don't think we can count on, oh, it started in B2C, we'll see it in 5 years in B2B. I just don't think for certain things that's the case anymore. There could be things that we see in a couple of months. It could take more like years for other things, but that the gap between those two worlds is shrinking.
It is, but there's also a lot of differences too between the two. And so we wanted to really understand, again, get into the heart of the consumer e-commerce world. So we went to this Shoptalk thing, which was at the Mandalay Bay Convention Center, which is a huge convention center. I think it's the fourth largest in Las Vegas, to see the experiences firsthand. And so a couple things here, Andy. The number one thing I noticed is even just in the name of the show, AI, of course, and we see this in B2B. AI was all over the place. The name of the theme of the conference was retail in the age of AI. Well, doesn't that say it all, right? I mean, everyone's thinking about this. And as you think about kind of as you just mentioned, kind of the forward thinking or, risk tolerant behavior of B2C companies, they're embracing and testing things at an enormously rapid pace. And that was clear from our time there, not only represented by, the people we saw and talked to who are in the B2C e-commerce operator space, but even the number of vendors. This hall was enormous, and they had hundreds and hundreds. What is the count, Andy? It was like 600, 700 vendors or something. It was crazy.
I mean, everywhere you look, there was a vendor.
It was crazy. I mean, so they had the format of Shoptalk. They have on stage talks. They have panel discussions. They have small meet up booths, things like that, and then this enormous trade show floor that has all kinds of vendors. And what is always I've always enjoyed about the B2C side. I used to be in B2C, as you know, Andy, for years, is that you could walk the floor and find tech, all kinds of tech, and people pushing the envelope. And part of that is because retailers will actually test things and pay to test things, whereas B2B doesn't as much. I mean, they're more, give me the use case, give me the ROI, give me the business case, and 2 years later, I'll maybe test it, maybe implement it on 2 products. I mean, the B2B is so dang conservative. B2C is out there doing things, and all of these vendors on the show floor are there, investing, and because of that nature of the retail business. What were your impressions of the vendor floor, Andy?
Yeah, it was enormous. I saw a long tail of
Yeah.
especially
Yep.
AI focused companies, which you and I were joking. I wonder how many of these companies will be gone in 3 years.
That's
But
it.
hey, it's creative destruction, right? Some of them, if it follows the venture capital rule, 1 out of every 10 companies will be successful, and 9 out of every 10 companies will not be.
Right.
But I'd rather be looking at those companies so I got an early lead on the one that was being, that could make a difference in my business, because there's such an advantage for the right circumstances to a first mover advantage. I think there's a natural bias in B2B to be a fast follower or even a slow follower. And there's a reliance on this notion that, oh, our customers have been with us forever.
Right.
They have the appetite to wait. They're patient. Well, that's an excuse a lot of times too, because as soon as something better comes along or a competitor, incorporates it, then that is a forcing function for a lot of these companies. And I think that's changing. I think these companies need to be more aware of what's coming. They need to embrace things more. They need to try things more, because these life cycles are really short and you could fall well behind.
Yeah.
Now, that said, and I think we're about to talk about this, even B2C gets ahead of itself, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and so the whole thing around ChatGPT a couple of months ago, where they announced that they're stopping the transactional side of it, that was perceived by most people as a failure, right? But
Right.
some of this discussion at the show and some of the things I've read, and I think you have too, indicate that, okay, so there's not as much transaction going on, which seems reasonable to me. They had to get that right, and there's a lot of complication. But I heard it in session after session at this event that there is now a new area between a seller and a buyer, and it's called where AI is involved. And so ChatGPT may not be intermediating transactions right now or anytime soon, but ChatGPT and others are heavily influential at the top of the funnel or the early part of the customer journey. And there was a lot of discussion about how do we optimize our presence there? How do we play on in AI, because it's no longer the case that we can count on people using SEO or coming straight to our website.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. The AEO was agentic or answer engine optimization, also called GEO, was, a huge topic, multiple sessions. And the other thing was vendors. Saw vendors that were serving that community, which again these are all new technologies, how to track, how to optimize, et cetera. The other thing that Shoptalk did really well, Andy, does really well, and this is where they built their business, is on these one-to-one meetings. And I love how they do this at scale, where they're matching people to solutions based on, practitioners to solutions based on their needs. Something that, we've tried to do at Master B2B and in our roundtable discussions to try to get people close to, matched up with the right solutions. And the most relevant conversations. So I like what they did that, but what was interesting, Andy, is they do it at such enormous scale. I mean, there's 10,000 people for those of you who can see the picture, in this room, going from table to table, meeting with solution providers and practitioners. Incredible, a scale on that. So So in terms of what, a couple takeaways here, Andy. So what I noticed, terms things that were similar at Shop Talk that to what we see at our B2B events and from our community, AI, of course, the focus is everywhere on AI and where can it be used, and it is across the board too, just as it is in B2B. And we heard it at our summit. It's also on the B2C side. We saw it everywhere, from an operational perspective, through top of the funnel awareness, through optimizing personalization and things like that for people's e-commerce experiences. We mentioned AEO and GEO and changes in search marketing. That was apparent. That's very similar between the two.
Well, for example, Meta was at this
Yeah.
event.
Right.
And to the point earlier, I think where maybe B2C got ahead of itself, like we just discussed, is that this relationship is not going to be transactional, at least not right now. But
Right.
it is going to be informational. And so Meta announced that they're introducing product reviews,
Mhm.
recommendations. They've augmented product details as a part of this quote unquote shopping journey. So they're
Right.
investing heavily in delivering that. Well, they would be doing that if they didn't know quantitatively that it's influencing people's purchases. So
Right.
that to me
Right. Right.
it feels like the early days of B2C of e-commerce. Remember when everybody said, "Okay, we're going to set up a website, we're going to sell everything through it," and the smart companies said, "Well, we tried that, and people still want to touch and feel stuff in the store." However, they're using the website to inform themselves, to
Right.
research, and eventually, look where that ended up. There's
Right.
still the vast majority of the buying takes place in the stores, but increasingly people bought more online to the point where when Amazon's the number one retailer, a clothing retailer in the country, number one or number two, a couple of years ago, people thought that was laughable that people would buy
Right.
clothing online. Well, it's just that it follows a process, but you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I heard a lot of people say things like, "Well, ChatGPT is not going to influence people's purchases." I'm like, yeah, or not going to be where people make purchases. Yeah, that's true. But ChatGPT and others are going to be highly influential about what people buy. So you got to
Well,
play in that space.
until the the agents are actually doing the purchasing. There's no human
Again,
involved.
that's part of this process, right? It's an
That's right.
evolutionary process, but there's such a tendency to go
Yeah.
right to the transaction, to go right to the monetizable part. And in that regard, they're getting ahead of where buyers are. But
Right.
buyers will eventually get there. To your point, maybe they're having agents talk to agents at some point. We're
Yep.
getting there, but man, you cannot assume just because the early tests failed that, how many early tests of rockets fail and we still end up going to the moon, right?
Right, right, sure. So the importance of digital experience was another overlap, between the two. That's clearly been a long time focus of B2C. There were technology solutions. Andy, you and I saw many similar companies, or the same companies that are at our B2B events that are also at the B2C. So a lot of the e-com platforms, for example, and search platforms. And then operational efficiency. There was a lot of talk and also solutions around operational efficiency, thinking about, shipping and logistics solutions, things of that nature. So that those are all a lot of, the similar things, but there's also still a lot of differences. And one of the ones that stands out to me most of all, Andy, and we've referred to this already, is the speed of decisions and risk taking. And that's clear. You can't support a haul of 800 or 1,000 vendors or whatever it is if your audience, the people at the event, are not buying and testing new solutions that in the B2B world may not be adopted as quickly. So to me, that remains a very stark difference between the two. Our B2B folks are very conservative. The customer is also very different. Of course, not for everyone that was at Shop Talk, but for many of them, they're talking about consumers, which, I like to say it this way, one customer in B2B equals 1,000 or 10,000 customers in B2C. I mean, these companies have databases of millions and millions of customers, the big ones. If you think about the Macy's customer base, or when I was at Harbor Freight Tools, we had 3 million customers. The same size company in B2B might have 10,000 customers, right? So there's a big difference there in how you're not only servicing them, but it has implications for loyalty and retention. And that's another difference, right?
Well, and customers, by the way, what's a B2C, what's a B2B customer? In B2C, it's a one-to-one
Right.
relationship. Macy's sells to Brian Beck,
Yep.
but in B2B, it's Grainger selling to Caterpillar.
Right.
So it could be multiple divisions of Grainger, but let's assume one on that front. It's going to be many people at Caterpillar.
Right.
Caterpillar is a customer, but it's really a holding company for a series of customers. And so that's why you and I talk about personalization, and it's really a different animal in B2B, because what are you personalizing for? The person making the purchase, the person authorizing the purchase,
Right.
the person
Right.
who's going to use the product. I mean, what
Right.
is it?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there's differences there for sure. Digital marketing too, Andy. It always strikes me at these conferences is there's so many at this B2C conferences. And again, I haven't been to one in a while, but it reminded me how many different ways to do customer acquisition there are in consumer. They're testing, email and SMS and all the social media aspects. And really they really push the envelope on how they acquire customers in ways that B2B doesn't. I mean, we're still talking about e-commerce as a lead gen source, just that in B2B, where, in B2C, they're doing all kinds of things with text messaging and just all sorts of tools and techniques, related to that, even how they use databases and acquire databases and it's just cookies and just everything. It's like a whole nother level of marketing. And then the other thing I noticed is that, in e-commerce, a lot of companies in B2C have moved to Shopify. And so you think about functionality as a differentiator. I believe still, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think you do. In B2B, getting e-commerce functionality right can still be a differentiator to some degree. In B2C, I don't think that's the case anymore. B2C is, you've got a lot of standard functionalities that are proven. If you're not doing them as table stakes, you're not even going to be in business. Right. So in B2B, though, if you could just implement e-commerce and already be a differentiated business just based on the basic functionality. Thoughts?
Yeah, there is some of that. I mean, I think there's an over reliance or an overweighting on product in B2B. Like, oh, if we just implement this, we'll build it and they shall come.
Right.
And I've not ever really found that to be the case, because I always say you can build, borrow, buy, or steal anything these days. And so if your focus is on our roadmap is going to differentiate us with our product introductions, that
Yeah.
unless it's something truly extraordinary, not the
Yeah.
case. That said, you are right. So many of these companies are so far behind that it's a differentiator for their business internally,
Yeah.
not externally. But I did want to say one thing I thought was interesting that I noticed at this event is there was we saw a lot of these influencers and content creators walking around. And my first instinct was, this is not a B2B thing. That said, I don't know if it isn't a B2B thing, especially on the more prosumer side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's taken to an extreme. We had these people walking around trying on makeup or whatever, and then going on their channels and promoting it. But I think there is a role to be played for user generated content in B2B. And we've talked at our summits about this. Remember a couple of years ago that Tim Lavender mentioned this, that
Yeah.
they're now recruiting, handymen and all sorts of
Right.
stuff to
Right.
demonstrate capabilities. I think B2B is underutilizing their customer
It's a good
network
point. It's a
to
good
do
point.
this kind of thing, because they don't see it as, again, that goes to the last point, right? They still see a lot of this interaction as being done through salespeople, whereas in B2C, it's being done through marketing. There aren't salespeople in B2C, right? So you market to people. And so you have to create content to do that. I think B2B still has a bias toward our content gets created by our salespeople in the form of a interaction where they talk about their
Right.
kids and take the
Right.
order. And I just think that is changing.
Right. No, I agree. The influencer point is a good one. And I think that there's a lot of things that B2B does not leverage that B2C does that, I think there's lessons there. And then, channel conflict, Andy, and channel conflict is a thing of the past in B2C. B2B is still completely hung up on this. They can't, it prevents action at many of these companies. We're worried about what our distribution is going to do, or worried about what our sales team is going to do if we launch e-commerce. Come on, guys, we got to modernize here. I understand it, but it's, B2C, this is one of the key lessons, I think. So,
And you can't live in fear of your customers. I mean, we've talked about this before. When Procter and Gamble announced they were going to start selling stuff online and through Amazon, Walmart and Target and the rest got upset about it and said, we're going to pull your stuff from ourselves. They issued all the threats, etc. And guess what didn't happen?
They didn't pull the stuff from the shelves.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
And
exactly.
thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Everybody finds a way to make it work. But you know what Walmart did is they went private label. And so there is a reaction to these things. And so it's a business case argument. You got to decide. But yeah, you got to do what's in your own best interest here. And too many of the brands in particular are afraid. We talk to companies all the time. They're afraid to sell direct. Too many of the brand manufacturers will not sell direct because they're afraid their channel is going to, engage in an uprising against them and be disrupted. I'm like, guys, that's already happening.
Yeah, I mean, distributors already have their own private label, guys. So, all right, it's just crazy. Hey, there you go, Linda Bustos. Thanks for your comment. The 4 B's of B2B: build, buy, borrow, or burglar. Thank you, Linda. Good thought. I love it. All right, we're like running way past time here, folks. But thank you very much for listening. A couple quick announcements. I want to remind folks that our B2B Nexus service is available. It is your personal digital lifeline, available on demand, expert advice to get your questions answered quickly and avoid making the wrong decisions. We have an amazing panel of expert advisors and other peers that we make available to help you make those decisions. Check out masterb2b.com and go to Nexus. It is a paid service and it's for practitioners. And then finally, I want to remind everyone that our Friday 15 is available in podcast form on your favorite podcast service, Spotify, Apple, etc., or on our website, YouTube. And please give us a review if you like it. If you don't have to listen. Well, anyway, folks, we appreciate you being here. Andy, any final words on our Friday? Oh my gosh, almost 30 minutes. We just talked too much.
Oh, it's too much good stuff. There is one thing I noticed that there was a lot of discussion at Shoptalk about where I think B2C can perhaps learn something from B2B, and it's about trust.
Oh yeah.
Trust. Because all those content people out there, a lot of them are making crap up. There's no way to know who's got what's real and not real. Again, if you try some lipstick, some influencer, unless there's like lead in the lipstick, it won't kill you, right? It just might look weird. But in B2B, if somebody says, hey, this part's great, you should try it, and it breaks the machine and somebody dies. Well, so what we just talked about with these channels and salespeople, there's a trust component there, but there's got to be some middle ground between the wild, wild west and anybody who's got an internet connection and a camera can just talk about a product. And no, we only have exactly these people who have to be authorized and certified to talk about these things. That's where B2B is. There's something in the middle, and B2C has to come back to that, and B2B has to move forward to that.
Yeah, no question. So there's a lot to learn, I think, from each side. So good stuff. I'm glad we went, Andy. It was exciting to be there at Shoptalk, and we look forward to continuing the conversation around this whole convergence thing between B2B and B2C. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're going to see you next week on our next Friday 15.